Good evening and welcome to NTV's Grow, Nebraska State Fair Edition. In the next half hour, we'll talk about all things agricultural at the Nebraska State Fair, including some unique displays connecting urban folks with what happens on the farm. Even combine rides for the kids. But we start with a look at headlines. If the Farmer's Almanac is right, this weather won't last long. Get ready for a bitterly cold winter with some major blizzards, including one right in time for the Super Bowl. The new 2014 Farmer's Almanac was published this past Monday. It is predicting a particularly active year for winter storms. Another prediction in the Almanac, a big snowstorm the first week of February in the New York, New Jersey area, the same time and location of Super Bowl 48, outdoors at MetLife Stadium. According to Geiger, the Almanac has an 80 to 85% accuracy rate. The EPA faces more lawsuits over data collected at livestock farms. Environmental and animal welfare groups say the EPA should not have dropped a rule that would have collected data from large-scale livestock farms. The lawsuit claims the information is critical to enforcing the Clean Water Act. Parties involved include the Center for Food Safety and the Humane Society of the United States. Previously, farm groups raised concerns, saying it would violate privacy to release such information. The number of cattle in feedlots shrank in Nebraska and nationwide last month, meaning beef prices may remain high. The USDA says there were 2.08 million cattle in Nebraska feedlots on August 1st, 7% lower than last year. Nationally, there were 10 million cattle in feedlots on that date. That was 6% lower than 2012. The USDA figures are for feedlots with capacity of 1,000 head or more. A state water task force is ready to study the needs in the Lower Platte River Basin. The task force will meet Thursday and Friday in La Vista as part of its ongoing review of state water priorities. The 34-member task force is charged with ranking proposed projects based on which does the most to ensure water is used productively and benefits residents. Crop conditions have declined ever so much during this recent heat spell. It has renewed fears about drought. The weekly USDA report says 44% of dryland corn is good or excellent, down just 1 percentage point, but still much lower than average. However, irrigated corn is improving in the heat. Soybeans also showed a slight decline in Nebraska and across the country. Hot and windy conditions have helped Kansas fields dry out. Farmers were able to catch up on haying and were able to spray herbicide to prepare for wheat planting. Most crops have benefited from warmer weather. Still, 60% of the Kansas corn crop is rated fair to poor, and just 34% rates good and only 6% excellent. The University of Nebraska and USDA have released a new variety of wheat designed specifically for dryland farms. Husker Genetics brand Freeman is named for Daniel Freeman, who is recognized as the first person to file for a homestead under the Homestead Act of 1862. UNL officials say the wheat variety is particularly well suited for dryland farmers throughout Nebraska and in states to the north and west. The Freeman variety is not recommended for irrigated production because other wheat types are better for those conditions. If it's state fair now, that means harvest is quickly approaching. Did you realize your local elevator may be part of a billion-dollar endeavor? Well, CPI is. Here's more. Pleased to be joined by Bob Fifield from CPI. And Bob, you know, we were just talking off camera. This is the time of year where we're starting to finish up our irrigation, and before we know it, all that corn and beans will be going into our elevators around the area, right?
That is correct. You know, we're probably going to do 1 or 2 more irrigations, especially with the heat, then let the crop mature out, and probably late September we'll start seeing some beans coming in.
This has to be an exciting time at the co-op and for CPI because, you know, you got to gear up and everybody gets pretty busy this time of year, I imagine.
Yeah, we have all our maintenance crews, plus we hire additional maintenance crews getting all our facilities ready. So when that first bushel comes, we're ready to go, and we're ready when the last bushel is dumped.
You know, and one thing we see on the CPI all over, we see this CPI 300, this idea that we can get 300 bushels an acre on our corn. Is that kind of the idea that I see you guys promoting?
Yes, that is what we're promoting. You know, if you look at what some of the seed companies are saying and where we need to be by 2020, we're going to have to be at 300. So we've started the program, CPI 300, working with growers to get some of their yields to 300.
Well, and that's the thing about, you are a farmer-owned cooperative. Everybody works together. You have all the resources really right there within the company to help farmers achieve those kind of numbers, right?
That is correct. Whether it goes into our agronomy department, we work with the grain department. Of course, it works with the energy, especially with irrigation. So it's all tied together, working as a team to help our owners, our growers, to get to the yields they need to be.
And what a fantastic couple of years you guys have had, just in terms of the dollars involved at CPI. It's really hard to wrap your head around anymore.
Yeah, the last 2 years we've had over $1 billion in sales, and when you start looking at $1 billion in sales, that's a lot of money. You know, it takes a lot of money to run the company, and again, I'd look at last year with $1 billion in sales, even in a drought. That's pretty amazing.
Well, and as we said, because you are farmer-owned, you're not out there just to make a profit and pad your own pocketbooks. That money gets reinvested, right?
It's reinvested in the facilities, and then also with patronage, we pay the patronage, we pay our profits back to our owners, who then take it and use it back in the communities. So it's a good thing for central Nebraska.
And how many locations are we up to these days with CPI?
We're now at 39 locations, permanent locations. We have additional that we only run seasonal, but 39 full-time locations.
And I imagine at those locations you've probably continued to increase capacity in terms of grain handling and then speed that we can get the grain out.
Absolutely. We do it every year. We're working on projects right now to get completed by harvest. Speed and space is a big thing. So again, we're doing that, and when you do that, that brings in millwrights, that brings in construction workers, which again add to the communities.
And if we're talking 300 bushels an acre, we're going to need more capacity down the road, aren't we?
If we get to 300 bushel all around, we don't have enough space to handle it. We can't build fast enough.
Those are good problems to have. It's great to see that our American farmers, our Nebraska farmers, continue just to do more with less and use our resources wisely, and it's really a neat story to tell.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, again, we're trying to use our water management systems, using fertilizer at the right time. Everything, if we do it, you know, like CPI says, right now, if we do it right now, we will get the yields with the minimum amount of inputs.
It's never too early to start thinking about next season, right?
Absolutely. Again, you always got to be planning ahead. You know, we're just getting this crop getting ready to go in the bin, but we already got to be planning for next year.
Okay, Bob, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for your support of our coverage of the State Fair.
Thank you.
From the biggest funnel cakes to the biggest steer, it seems everything is bigger at the Nebraska State Fair, including this sculpture, but it's much more than a big novelty.
A combine in a field, a tractor, and a pig out grazing on some soybeans.
Can you believe your eyes? This farm scene is straight from the shelves of your local grocery store, and that's no accident. Farmer Ron Pavelka of Glenville explains this construction is a showcase of Nebraska agriculture.
Really grabs your attention when you come into the building, and that gives us an opportunity to have conversations with people as they go by. And
conversations about food and the farmers who grow the corn and beans cattle and hogs eat.
You're looking at the final product there.
Connecting the meat counter back to the farmers who raised the grain, who are more than happy to explain the process from the farm to the market.
The questions are really fun to answer, and it's great that we get an opportunity to do that, because they're probably asking somebody that doesn't know, and if they're getting the wrong answer, then there's confusion out there in the marketplace. And so this is a great environment for us to get the questions answered and see firsthand what farm production is actually about.
Some fairgoers may have a romanticized view of family farmers that may not include guys like Ron.
Where the factory farm is everyone else like me, and that is just so far from the truth. I'm a fifth-generation family farmer, and I'm proud to say that I grow corn, soybeans, and cattle down south of Hastings, Nebraska.
So this is a picture of what farmers can do.
The pork industry is no different than any other commodity group. We constantly try to improve ourselves and produce more with less, and the pork industry is definitely doing that now.
Last week in our poll question, we asked, what's your favorite part of the Nebraska State Fair? The rides, the concerts, the food, the livestock shows? Here are the results to that not-so-scientific survey. The Farm Bill continues to be a big talking point among farmers, a big source of frustration. We will hear from the chair of the Nebraska Corn Board up next.